Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Neha, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about how you got into mindfulness and meditation.
This is over a 10-year-long journey. I started being attracted towards books, and I started off with Paulo Coelho and a lot of personal development books, which is what I was drawn to. And I had my son about 11 years back, and I thought, okay, I think I should do something about the way I am being a parent. I'm not quite happy about that, and that's something I want to change and be a better parent. That's where my journey began, and I started to become mindful about the way I was dealing with my son on a daily basis, the way I was handling him, the way I was talking to him, the words I was using with him.
So what about your parenting was worrying you at the time? What sort of things troubled you?
I noticed that I'm a very angry person at the time, and that was certainly not something that helped. I require a lot more patience as a parent. So I said, maybe this is what I went through and I am repeating the same mistakes which I witnessed in the past.
So did you find that you had angry parents or you had a bit of sort of conflict in your childhood?
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
It was quite disturbing, to be honest, to witness that. As a child, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness and disappointment in my mother's eyes. And I saw and remembered that. And I said, I don't think this is the right thing a child wants to see in the mother's eyes, because parents are God in the child's eyes. And they will believe what this person says to them. And that is what is going to reflect when they are adults. That is the voice that is going to be speaking in their heads when they're on their own.
So was there a particular incident or something that happened that made you realise that you needed to try to find a way to be a more patient and calm mother?
Yes, I felt I was never heard, I was never understood, and everything had to be a certain way, the way my mother wanted. And I said, is this how parenting is supposed to be? And then something happened where I was asking Mom when I mentioned to her, but I wanted to talk on the phone, and I was probably 8 or 9. And she said, what would you have said? But there was no apology. There was no talking and comforting that came through. There was no comforting words in her voice ever. And I said, this is wrong, and this is certainly not the way I am going to bring up my child.
Oh, so you realised this as a child, that you weren't going to bring up your child in the same way?
Yes.
And then, can you tell me where you grew up?
I grew up in Bahrain, in the Middle East.
What brought you to Hong Kong?
An arranged marriage brought me to Hong Kong.
Tell me about that.
An arranged marriage to a person I didn't know much about. That's a very common thing among Asians, especially in Indians, maybe some time back. I'm not sure about what it is now, but it's someone knows someone and they say, okay, let's match these two. There's some astrological matching that happens and they say, okay, this is a good match, and they look like they will be a good match, so then they should get married. Whether or not these two people meet is out of question. I mean, this person is in Hong Kong. I, at the time, was just out of university in Mumbai, which is when this happened. And I don't even know about this person. And I had someone in my life at the time, but that was not acceptable to my parent.
That must have been very sad and difficult for you.
It was a painful time.
I can imagine.
To make it even worse, because this was unacceptable, my mom refused to talk to me. For 3 years, she did not talk to me.
That must have been very painful.
Yes, it was.
And then so your mum and the parents of your husband-to-be, were they the ones that arranged the marriage and looked at the astrology to decide that you would be a good match?
It was actually the maternal grandmother of my ex-husband.
Right.
who was that at the time living in India, and she would frequent my mom's place, and she had her daughter living in Hong Kong. And that's how the two of us met. When my ex-husband, he used to come and see me maybe for a week in those 3 years. Every year he would come and see me. We would go out for dinners and have just casual dating, if you want to call it.
And did you know at that time that he was going to be your husband?
It was something that I gave into because nothing else was acceptable. And to be honest, after those 3 years, I had had enough. I thought, okay, this is miserable. My only escape from the situation is probably marriage, because I don't see anything else.
You found that your situation was miserable living at home with your family, and that you didn't have any freedom or independence, and you were not happy. So you thought this could be a way to escape, even though it was something that you didn't want to do. Is that right?
That is right.
So what happened? Where did you get married, and how did you end up in Hong Kong?
I got married in Mumbai because my ex-husband's family flew over, and then I flew to Hong Kong with him soon after the marriage.
How old were you?
24.
And how did it feel to be married to someone you didn't know very well, and someone you hadn't chosen, and to come to Hong Kong?
It was all quite a mess, to be honest. Looking back, it seemed all right. I didn't even know what marriage meant. I never saw any of my friends get married or even talk about it. So this was something I just gave into. I had no idea about what it's supposed to be like to be married to an absolute stranger who I have no mental connection or physical attraction towards.
And did that connection develop at all throughout the relationship?
Not really. When I came to Hong Kong, we lived with his parents.
How was that?
Coming from a nuclear family, that was something I just... If I had it differently, I would have maybe made my voice heard about it. That didn't happen until much, much later, though.
So you would rather have just lived with your partner and not with the whole family?
Yes, for any kind of maybe intimacy at all to develop.
Yeah.
Because every time we're doing things together with the extended family, and this is important, and this person is important, and that person is important, and everyone is important except myself. And it came to a point where I said, no, this is not what I want.
So how long were you in the marriage, and is that where you had your son?
Yes, I was in the marriage for 12 years, and I had my son 5 years after marriage. And I was at a time where I wanted to break away from the marriage even before I had my son. But this was something I had to fight, a bigger fight that I knew nothing about.
What do you mean you had to fight a bigger fight that you knew nothing about?
Because when I said to my husband then, I just don't want this anymore, he would take it to the whole family, and the pressure would go on me, and they would talk to my parents. Look, your daughter was saying this. And then parents would talk to me. So it's always back to me, and I'm asking my husband, and husband is giving it back to the family. It goes on to the extended families, and everyone's pressuring me to stay in a marriage I don't want to. Basically, I'm the only one that wants out. So it's not going to be easy.
Must be very difficult, because where do you go? How do you get out? It must be quite frightening to be wanting to not be in that situation and really struggling to be able to make that change. And then it sounds like you got pregnant and ended up having to stay longer because of that. Is that right?
I was in a completely different mental state and didn't even know myself. Perhaps having my child set me on this journey to get to know myself a lot better. And that's one beautiful element that came out from a marriage, which I didn't have much to give it to. Couldn't possibly make myself love someone I couldn't.
That's really understandable. And, I can't imagine being in that situation. And it must be so demoralizing and sad. And, there must be a lot of emotions that go along with it. But you must feel quite powerless.
Yes. And the 9-year-long process that took me to get out of the marriage was the process of finding my voice, and then getting the power, enabling myself, and then saying, okay, enough is enough, and I put my foot down. I want out. out.
Good for you. And how did you get out at that point? What did you do?
For the 7 years that I didn't work because I took care of my son, I then afterwards made myself a little bit more trained, got a little training in yoga because getting out and finding work wasn't easy. I just started part-time, got a training in yoga, and then I found a full-time job. When I found that, I said I'm going to move out. And then I moved out. And then the divorce procedure started. A year before, the two of us had spoken to mom and dad-in-law, telling them, no, we're not going to do anything. This marriage is basically not there. And about a year later, this was December 2012, and December 2013, I walked out of that home.
Congratulations. You're so brave and courageous. And I imagine that having that financial independence and having that job allowed you to do that. I'm guessing it must be almost impossible to leave marriage without that sort of independence and having a job.
Yes, it was quite difficult, and to add to that, it was explaining to a 7-year-old what it would mean.
And what did it mean to the 7-year-old?
He didn't understand it. He couldn't comprehend it. And at that time, the two of us, and even now, Max and I are on better terms. And our focus remains, and back then as well, remained our son. We just try to explain it to him in the best way we can, and telling him, okay, you can see mom whenever you like. Mom will see you, and that's going to be something that you will continue. We would meet often when the three of us get together and show him that this is how it's going to be, and perhaps read him books and spend time, the three of us together. He lives with his father and he comes over to stay with me, and this is how we explain to him, all right, this is how mom and dad were, and you are a product of our love, but now this is not the case. It doesn't mean you have lost a parent. We will always love you. I will always love you. And I just keep on establishing that.
So was it your choice to leave him living with his dad when you left, or did you have any option there?
I would have chosen to stay with him, but that was not an option my ex wanted. In hindsight, I think because he has his whole family, he has more support. I'm the one who needs taking care of myself. I think it's better. I would be able to deal with myself so that I can be a better person and be able to give my son the best that I can.
So when you were first starting your mindfulness and moving into that area of your life, you were still in the marriage and your son was about 7. Is that right?
No, mindfulness was something that I was practicing, and more of meditation and reading more of spiritual books, not religious books. It's more like books from spiritual leaders, the likes of Osho and Deepak Chopra, Paulo Coelho. That was something that I built as a foundation, and meditation happened. Then my yoga teacher training happened, which is where I learned to meditate, and I explored more and more of those videos, and which is why when meditation happened, so did mindfulness. So it just went deeper into that. That is something I have practiced. The coaching came in much, much later. This was 2 years back. And at the time I was at the job that I had picked up after I had picked my job and then moved out. So it was coming towards the end of that job, and then coaching happened. So that's when I realized, okay, I really, really, really like this personal development element, and this ties with better parenting and being a better person. So this is how I start to explore that as a career.
So mindfulness and meditation coaching, can you tell me what it is and how it works?
When you practice more of meditation, you will become mindful in your life. It will start to reflect in one area of your life, and then it will move on to other areas of your life, which is why the core practice is meditation, so that you can become more and more mindful. How do you meditate? When you meditate, you don't have a goal, and you don't let your thoughts affect you. that in a way is a goal, but you don't think about the goal.
So it's not about emptying your mind, but it's about just not latching onto your thoughts.
That is correct.
And this is something that you teach people to do. So do they come to you and you teach them how to meditate?
Yes.
Where do you do this?
I do this at Wellbeing Central in 18th Center Street, Sayingpun.
How important is it for people to look after their well-being, and what are some of the ways that they can do it along with the meditation? What other things would you recommend to your clients that they could do?
Take care of the food that they eat, get enough sleep and exercise. That's basic.
And meditate.
And if they can add meditation to that, that's going to take it to another level.
So if you have somebody come to you who's got a fairly stressful life, which many people do in Hong Kong, and they want to learn to meditate, what sort of changes do you see in them as they go through the process with you over time?
To be honest, I haven't got a lot of people coming in because they're hesitant to know and practice it, or they have inhibitions about it. They ask, how is this related to Buddhism? I'm sorry, I'm a Christian. I hope you understand.
I didn't expect that. That's interesting that people have that point of view.
Yes, these are the questions I get when I put out the information about it.
So how do you answer that? What do you say to them?
I say, come to the meditation and find out by yourself.
And do they come?
Some do.
And how would you describe mindfulness meditation to someone who has no knowledge of the subject at all?
Lose your mind and come to your senses.
Oh, that's very nice. That makes sense. And do you ever recommend meditation apps? You know, I know there's lots of apps like Headspace, and there's quite a few different apps on phones where people can plug in and do, you know, short meditations in the morning. Do you recommend that sort of thing, or are you more about the pure practice of meditation?
That's something I myself had started with when I first started meditation. I said, let me just try what guided meditation is and feel for myself what it is like. So if people want to do that and ask for this information, I said, sure, go ahead and do that. As long as you're able to meditate and fall into the place where it happens and you get peace out of it, fine. And then you can let go of any other apps and recordings and guided meditations, and you can do the practice on your own if you want to.
So for our listeners, a guided meditation is where somebody is talking you through the process and you're listening to the calm voice of somebody helping you breathe and relax. But when you actually practice meditation yourself, you're doing all of this on your own. Is that right?
Yes, except for the talking. It's more about looking inward, and the practice takes you inward, which may not be comfortable, but if you bring other senses and listen to the sound, or have incense or aroma to help people fall into a place like this and help them envision something, some peaceful scenery, and continuously be able to do that and follow their breath, most importantly, but not think about it. So it's actually being witness to all of that for a minimum of 20 minutes is going to help you to get into a place where you're not going to be thinking about anything.
And I think that's interesting because a lot of these apps are 3 minutes or 6 minutes, and you're talking about doing it for 20 minutes where you can really get into the full meditative state. And
yes.
If I started meditating, how is that going to then have a positive impact on my everyday life? What's it going to change about my day-to-day activities and the way I feel about myself or the way I manage stress?
Each person finds some kind of relief in their own way. Maybe you will notice your skin looks slightly different. Meditation is known to have a positive effect on the skin, possibly even the way we eat, possibly a bit of weight loss because of the breathing, the deeper breathing, stress reduction, better sleep, and hormones getting regulated. Yes,
oh, that's interesting.
Yes, because cortisol is overproduced when you're under stress, and because you practice calming yourself down using your breath and just focusing on something you're not normally doing, you're able to bring down cortisol levels, and much of the fat around the belly is because of too much cortisol.
People can just generally feel happier, can't they, when they meditate, and calmer?
Yes.
As well. And
Yes.
that's something you were talking about in relation to your parenting.
Yes.
That once you began, you started to have a much calmer approach in your parenting. Is that right?
That is correct. It just, because it's taking care of emotional well-being, it's just lots and lots of hormones at flow. And that helps to reflect, okay, I can handle this because I can stay calm. So now my son is crying for something, but I don't necessarily have to take that and react, because now I have the awareness to respond. So I'm not going to go crazy, but I'm going to think, okay, what can I say for this situation to get better, for him to listen to me, or to calm him down. If I am not calm myself, I cannot bring that to him. So for me, it's important that I stay and keep my emotions under control, if you will.
So for anybody who has emotional fluctuations or has anger management issues, you would recommend meditation as a way of getting these up and down emotions more under control, would you?
Yes, I would definitely recommend that.
And you're living proof, because obviously you had these issues with your parenting. You started meditation and it completely changed the way that you looked after your son.
Yes.
Did you have to make a conscious effort to recognise that you were repeating patterns from your mother, and that did you realise that you were losing your temper and that you were impatient? Could you see that that was happening? Or did somebody have to point it out to you?
No, I noticed that, and I realized if I continue to stay in a stressful situation and an unhappy marriage, it is not going to serve me anymore. Pluck myself out of it to become a little bit more reflective about it.
Did you feel like your difficult marriage and your unhappy life really played into those moods, and the fact that you weren't really coping with parenting and it was all one thing on top of the other?
That is correct. And only when I started to take care of myself was I able to give the care I wanted to give as a mother.
So how often do you meditate?
I do mini meditations kind of every day, longer sessions once a week or twice.
Do you think that this practice is effective for everybody? Do some people try meditation and it just doesn't work? They can't slow their mind down, they're too busy, they're very sort of active people that aren't able to get into the really relaxed mode and do meditation correctly?
They can come to my workshop, which will happen next month, which is where I can teach them or take them through a process. And number 2, you should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you are too busy, then you must do it for 1 hour.
I like that logic. One thing that mindfulness teaches us is the difference between pain and suffering. Do you have an opinion, or what is your take on that?
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So you have a painful situation, but you have an option whether you want to stay in it or you can leave it. There is something you can do about it.
And that's exactly what you did, isn't it? Do you ever regret the choices that you've made?
Never. It was one of the best decisions I ever made. I have not looked back. I won't say it has been easy. No, it has been the toughest part. But given where I was 5 years back and where I am now, I can serve people and help them get out of the situation they were in or they are in, because I was able to bring myself out of pain and the suffering and the anger.
So is that part of what motivates you to be a mindfulness and meditation coach, is to help others and particularly help women who are in similar situations that you were in?
It doesn't necessarily have to be women only. There are a lot of people, men and women, who stay in situations that don't serve them. And in order for them to come out, and some of them are actually there because they want to raise children and they're only there for the children. There's nothing in it for them. Maybe they're doing out of the pressure from society or their image or whatever. But if it's not serving them, it's not serving anyone.
So what you're saying is anybody staying in an unhappy situation or an unhappy relationship under the guise of doing it for the children is not really doing that child any favours.
No.
And that if they were happy and content and looking after themselves and taking care of them, then they're going to be a better parent.
Absolutely.
People who find themselves in unhappy situations often have a lot of family pressure. And I believe you had a lot of family pressure to stay where you were.
Yes.
And that can make life very difficult and make these choices even harder.
That is correct. But this is where you start to think and reflect whether it's serving you or not. And if it's not serving you, it's time for a change. Just because it has been going on and it's a tradition doesn't mean it has to be carried on. Even if you have to stand alone, you have to stand up for yourself.
It's a part of Taoism to get back to nature and that how much nature is linked with your health. And do you feel that that really does link very much with meditation and well-being, health and getting back to nature, getting out and walking barefoot on the grass and leaving your phone at home and really taking in your surroundings?
Yes, I don't know much about Taoism, but yes, I have gone on hikes and I have removed my socks and shoes and gone barefoot and had people watch what I'm doing and get those kind of looks. Okay, what's she doing? But nature is one way to enrich our experience.
How would you say mindfulness and meditation have changed your life, if you could sum it up for us?
Meditation has taught me how to be more mindful, and mindfulness is something that I practice in my day-to-day life, in what I eat, how I interact with people, what words I use with my son, with the people I am coming across, how to encourage them, how to motivate them. Words that I never knew or heard, but I know the impact they can make on someone else's psyche. So having been chosen for this path, I think it has worked well for me. I think I am able to guide people who are yet to be there and provide the wisdom, if you will, for them to move forward if they need that.
That's fantastic. And I can really feel that you would be able to do that. I can really feel it in your energy and your soul, and you feel so light and joyful and centered.
Awesome. Thank you.
If somebody was listening to this podcast and they're thinking, meditation sounds amazing, I live a very busy, stressful life, this could be something that could really help me in many ways, what do you suggest they do to get started?
The moment they realize, okay, maybe they're pushing themselves too much, if they can just let go and close their eyes and take a deep breath. If they can't do anything else, if they did that, it's going to help them. And they could repeat that 1 or 2 minute exercise every so often throughout the day.
Do you need to have a meditation coach to be able to meditate, or can you do it yourself at home?
If you think you need a meditation coach, I am here to help you. If you think you can do it on your own, fabulous. If you're absolutely lost, I want to help you because I want you to know what you can do and how beautiful the experience is. I want you to feel it for yourself. It's on the 9th of September at Wellbeing Central. 10:30 to 12. It's a 1.5 hour workshop where I introduce the basic elements for you to have a strong foundation to your practice, to take you through a process of meditation, to fall into a place where you possibly can experience a deeper relaxation.
Okay, so what's your Facebook page?
My Facebook page goes by the name Infinite Wisdom. It's at Infinite Wisdom 999. I have an Instagram page that goes by the same name. I have a Facebook group called Coaching in SYP. SYP stands for Saying Kun. So if anyone is interested in getting in touch with me, they can call me at 91258992, or visit the page or the group and message me directly there, or reach out to me through email, which is on my Instagram page by the same name.
Fantastic. Thanks, Neha. And I really do recommend to our listeners that if they're interested in meditating and they're interested in well-being, to get in touch with you, because you've got such a beautiful vibe and such a great energy. And I have a really strong instinctive feeling that you will be a fantastic meditation coach. Thank you very much for talking to me today. I really, really appreciate it. And it's been great to learn more about the importance of looking after ourselves through meditation and mindfulness.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.